Hello, it's Robin Norgren here, and you are at Josie's Art School, episode number, I think it is 204, you guys. I'm so glad that you're here. For my long-time subscribers, super happy that you're here. Hope that you're enjoying the ride with me as I race to 1,000 subscribers, and I hope you will help me get there. So part of the silliness about having so many episodes is that many times I would do really short episodes because I was keeping in mind, people don't have a lot of time and yada, yada, yada. And so I wanted to give you a quick art lesson. The problem is that I have to also get 4,000 hours, you guys. So I have to make these videos a tad bit longer. So please know you can always stop and come back, but I'm so happy that you're here. Today, we're going to continue on in my series of In the Style of, which is where I take a famous artist or a renowned artist, and then what I do is I create something in the style of them. And I hope what this allows you to do is, of course, come, relax, enjoy. It's a very simple art lesson that you can just create and have fun with, but also make something lovely that you would be pleased to even display in your home or give as a gift. But also I hope that it inspires you to, if it's an artist that you've never seen before, that you'll go and research it at your local library or on the internet. So let's go ahead and get started. What I'm working on right now is a 12 by 18 piece of paper. You don't have to use this. You can actually use anything that you have available to you. Even if you like creating in a sketchbook, you can just do the sketch in your sketchbook, and then if you like it, you can just move it onto a canvas or whatever at any time, right? All right, so the style of Georgia O'Keeffe. So for so much of Georgia O'Keeffe's work, when you hear her name, you think of her flowers. But what I would like to introduce you to, if you haven't seen it already, is her beautiful landscapes. And I really think that you're going to enjoy it. I, of course, live in Arizona, live in that southwest area, so near where she spent especially the latter years of her life in New Mexico. So I have seen a lot of the landscapes just in my area, very similar to what she created. And so that's what really drew me to her, past just looking at her flowers. So let's go ahead and create something right now. Now I'll show you what I'm using today. Obviously you can use whatever it is that you like, but we're going to be using, more than likely because we're emulating a desert feel, is you want to use a brown of any type, any value, and then you can just use white to just change the depth of color. I'm also going to use a little bit of black paint. I'm going to do a little bit of color mixing also with an Apple Barrel 2 blue, so that I have some spaces where I might want to create the sky. I'm not sure about that yet. But also, and all of my products that I'm showing you are the Apple Barrel products. So this is a nutmeg brown. This is Apple Barrel black. It's just pure black. My white is actually an Apple Barrel Snow White. But I am also going to use, as I showed you, the blue, which is a 2 blue. But I also have handy, just in case, a Laguna, right? And then I'm also going to have close by one of my oil pastels. This one's called a True Blue, but as you can see, isn't that funny? So here's a True Blue in the oil pastel. Okay, this is 2 blue. Okay, don't worry about me. I'm doing fine over here. Anyway, whatever you have available, just make sure and get that in front of you now. Pause me if you need to. But what I'm going to do first, I should also show you, I'm going to use a sponge brush. And you can use a sponge brush. You actually can even use like a kitchen brush if you have it handy. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to wet that brush, and I'm going to do what we call a wash on my paper. So I'm going to take some of my nutmeg brown, and I'm going to add a little bit, so I'm just using one of these trays that I have handy, and I'm going to add a little bit of the Snow White. And then I'm going to mix it together, and I want to just wash it on the page for a couple of reasons. Number one, I just want to get some paint on the page so I'm not feeling trying to make anything too perfect. But also, and this is one of the suggestions that I actually love sharing, I actually love to work with cardboard, and even paper bags. And there's something about that that, you know, just your background, you know, if you will, not being black, or sorry, not being white, which allows you to just start painting without feeling that anxiety about what am I going to put on the page. Now what I'm doing is I'm just spreading it across my paper here, and so feel free to do this as well. And what I like about it is, as you can see already, it is creating kind of a texture that's going to work really well with what we're going to create. Because what we're creating is a desert type landscape that you might see in Arizona or New Mexico. This, because of the way that I'm blending the two colors together, you can see already this kind of has a feel like a canyon landscape. And so now that you see what it is that I'm going for, you know, feel free to modify it as you see fit. I'm actually one of those people that I will watch a video once through just to get a kind of a sense of where it is that the artist is going. And then from there, I'll put my own spin on it. So if you are like me, I totally understand. I kind of like to know where it is that someone's taking me, right? Even when it comes to creating art. Okay. Well, you probably already knew that from the finished one that you saw on the cover of this video, but maybe it just started automatically. All right, so here I have my basic background, right? And look at that. Already, I could like literally leave it like that. It kind of takes on the feel of a desert landscaping. Obviously, I'm not going to do that. But from here, so this should dry pretty quickly, especially with the wash, because it dries very quickly because of how little of the paint is on there, and just the air starts to dry it just as quickly as you put it on there, which is kind of nice. So what you'll do from there, now I'm going to use a marker just so you can see it on your screen, but you could also take a piece of chalk or just simply a pencil. And what we're going to do is we're going to start to draw some outlines in it that will allow you to start to create something on the page. So here's what for an example. So I'm going to make a horizon line. And as you can see, I'm trying not to make it so prominent because I really want it to work into the colors that I am doing. So I've made my horizon line there. And then I'm just going to allow my, my marker, and you can do this with your pencil, to just kind of organically just create some plateaus within the paper already. So above that horizon line. And then maybe have like kind of a mountain-esque feel right behind that. Okay, so if you're working with here, the mountain, a plateau, you've got your horizon line. And then from here, you could just make an kind of a semicircle, and you don't have to make, again, we don't want it too perfect. But from here, you could decide, oh, I'm going to put some sort of water in this area, or maybe a lake here below, right? So again, already you're seeing that this is starting to come into place, and now you're going to just kind of trust that process to start to create within those, I guess you would call, boundary lines. And you can do that in a number of different ways. You could use acrylic paint. You could use oil pastels or crayons or even markers or colored pencils, and you would start to just blend it in kind of with that theme in mind that you're thinking about a desert landscape. So you'd be going with the shades of brown, even some shades of blue, possibly some shades of green, even some yellow. And then you just start to play with the colors that you have on your page. So like, for example, here, I actually really love just this area right here that I've created as my plateau area. So I'm going to leave that alone for now, and I think I'm just going to play with maybe the sky. And so for the sky, I'm actually going to use, so I do have some oil pastels available, and I'm going to use this gray. Okay, let's see if you can see it. And it's the Craypause Expressionist brand. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here in this space that I've not really created anything, and I'm just going to draw over the top. I have to be very careful because my paper is not a mixed media paper, and that can be good and not so good. The not so good part is that it will tend to tear if I'm not careful. But the great part about it is that you know how paper, once it gets wet, it starts to wrinkle. Well, those wrinkles actually work really well in what it is that I am trying to create. So I just need to be mindful of the type of paper that I'm using. All right, so here I am, got that in there, and it could almost feel like gray skies, or maybe we're going into dusk or a sunset. And then from here, I'm going to now add a little bit of blue to the mountains. So I'm going to use just a little bit. And again, feel free to use the colors that you have available. And as you feel inspired, change up your color choices as you see fit. So I've got my blue, my two blue, now that we've seen it, and my Snow White. And I'm going to do again a little bit of mixing because I don't want it to be too prominent. And then I'm going to come in here. And again, as you can see, I'm not trying to take out all of that brown. I want the brown to really work with the colors that I'm adding. And so it wasn't so prominent with when I did the gray, but now that I'm adding this in, I'm going to put a little more water in my brush. You can see that it's really starting to come together. And again, I'm letting that wash that I put on the background really work with me. George O'Keeffe is really one of my favorite artists to start with when I introduce artists to students, because many of them, you know, especially by the time they hit kindergarten, have attempted to draw flowers, right? And so that's an easy entry point for them because they already have drawn flowers before, you know, for Mother's Day or Father's Day or things like that. They kind of have a sense of how a flower looks. And so then, of course, we go into Georgia O'Keeffe's style of painting of flowers, which are very up close, and they just love the idea of making, you know, really large flowers, and that they really can use any type of color to mimic nature. All right, so there we have my mountain set. I'm still leaving this alone because I really like what that's doing. And I think what I'm going to do now is I'm going to kind of challenge myself by putting some shrubbery over around the edges of that plateau area. So I'm going to use, this is actually the Craft Smart brand, one of my favorite colors right now, sage green. And I'm going to take, I think I'm going to take a Q-tip. So as you can see, I use a lot of everyday household items. This is kind of the tricks of the trade for working as an art teacher, is that if I can't get all the supplies that I want, I will find something that can do similar to what an actual technique I'm trying to get at. So what I'm doing is I'm just kind of dotting this in around the edges. I'm still deciding whether or not I want to make that my river or lake area. And so I'm not getting too particular with where I'm adding the color. I just want to organically place this. And then of course I can always cover it up if I wanted to. But just to kind of put it on there so that I can have just some interesting areas on my painting so that I can really go outside of the box and not just stick solely with the lines that I've drawn on the painting. Okay. So now from here, you can take something like a yellow or even like a gold color and start to add that into your painting. So I'm using like a yellow ochre, again, an oil pastel, and I really do love working oil pastels into my my paintings. And as you can see, I'm just kind of adding a little lightness and seeing how that comes together. I think I'm going to put a pin here so you can see that better. I can find one. Let's put that here. Hold that down. And so I'm going to rub that here down at the bottom, this yellow ochre. But then I'm also going to add a little bit of it towards the top here by the mountains, just to kind of balance it out. So you're not just looking at this one place that has yellow on it, right? All right, so then from there, I'm going to take, I think, my blue now, and this is my Laguna color. And I'm now going to add that into my painting for my water. And so again, not getting too perfect with how I'm adding it. Really just allowing the freedom of the paint and the water. I'm adding a little water to my brush just to kind of wash it on, kind of like what I did with the brown. Just kind of seeing where would that water go. Okay, loving it so far. Now I think I'm going to keep some of this blue in my paint. So again, I don't want it to be brown, blue, green, yellow. So I'm going to keep a little bit of the blue in the paint, but now I'm going to just use just the brown on its own and see what I can do with that. So again, not feeling like I've got to put it in a certain place or make straight lines. I really want movement, and I really want it to mimic what you see in the outdoors. So it's not these simple two-dimensional straight lines. The colors really do mix within themselves, right? A little bit there, maybe a little bit there. Okay. I think I'm also going to take my black paint and I'm going to go over the top of that marker, because the marker is so different from the paint. You really want it to have a more natural look to it. Now, I will say there is such a thing called an ugly stage when you are painting, where you think everything is wrong and what is wrong with your life and why do you pick up a paintbrush and all of those things. It is very much a natural part of the painting process. I talk about it with my students that sometimes you just need to walk away from it. I have been probably about 98% successful on not having kids throw their paintings away. I'm very adamant about, like, even if you don't want to finish it up today, let's leave it and let's look at it next week and see what you think. And there's something about pulling back from the perspective of it. There's something about letting the paint dry. There's something about whatever's playing in your brain that's causing you to feel like it needs to be perfect and how it's not perfect what you've just done, that when you walk away and come back on another day, it is better than you remember. And I actually think that's kind of the beauty of being an art teacher, is that you have to deal with that gremlins for yourself first before you can help kids deal with it on their own. And even a lot of times when I finish up these videos, I will leave my painting here on the wall and I will not look at it until later when it comes time for me to photograph the cover photo. And because, you know, I mean, sitting in front of a screen making paintings that, especially when you don't have your own like design over here for you to take a look at, you've got to really go, it's going to be okay, leave it alone. All right, so let me add some black here. And again, it's starting to make its own space for itself, right? I'd like to add a little more green in, maybe even want to add some sort of shrubbery. Again, not getting too perfect with it. Add on to what you've already created. You could actually add some flowers into it. So maybe take like a purple or a magenta. You know, if you guys have been around here long enough, you know that's one of my favorites right now, but I'm going to stay away from it. Just add some flowers to the shrubs. Maybe some of your purple on your mountains. Okay. Maybe do a mixture of your blue and yellow, because again, you just add it in there subtly and that just kind of brings the painting together. I'm using that Q-tip, which again gives it a different touch than if I were to use my paintbrush with it. And then as you can see, even as I'm gently adding it in, if you haven't seen a desert before, and I guess you could look on the internet, it really doesn't do it a justice. Sometimes when I'm looking at it even myself, I'm like, gosh, that is so gorgeous. And that's real life. You're not like looking at a painting, but it's so amazing. So that's just kind of bringing it in to perspective here. So adding a little bit to the water. Maybe add a little to those shrubs. Dabbing a little with my fingers, so again, it's not too perfect. Add a little to the background up here. So again, I'm loving sage green, highly recommend it. It's like one of those things where I guess I could mix it, but they got it to perfection for me. I really love it. All right, so there you have it. So this is my rendition of In the Style of Georgia O'Keeffe. I would love to see what it is that you've created. So yes, please find me over on Instagram or at Facebook. If you look for me on Facebook, I'm under Joseys Art School, just like the episodes. And if you're looking for me on Instagram or anywhere else, I'm under my name, Robin Norgren. But I am so glad that you came by. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Hit the notification bell. I do at least 2 videos a week. And I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers, and I'm already at 400. So thank you so much for those of you who are here. Make sure and help me get there. Subscribe. I've already told you that. Check out my Patreon account if you'd like to be a patron of mine. And as always, I am honored that you come and paint with me at least a couple times a week. See you later. Goodbye.